Okay, so we are back in page 65 in our in our workbook, right? On our white and green workbook, and we have completed 2 through 8 in number 2. So let's go over this together, and I'll show you my answers and why I used them. All right. So again, the instructions say complete the sentences with an infinitive or a gerund. All right. So number 1 was done for us. Let's look at number 2. We've decided blank on the garden tour. They want us to use the base form. They want us to use the verb go. All right. And it says this is in our base form. Sorry. All right. So we have to figure out if we're going to use an infinitive or gerund here. So for this one, I chose to use the infinitive. We've decided to go on the garden tour. If I use the gerund, we decided going on the garden tour, that is not correct. Okay? So I use the infinitive. We've decided to go on the garden tour. Number 3. Rick intends blank the tickets, and they want us to use the verb buy. All right? I chose the infinitive. Rick intends to buy the tickets. If I use the gerund, Rick intends buying the tickets, that's not correct. All right. So I use the infinitive. Rick intends to buy the tickets. Number 4. Mayuko dislikes blank late for concerts, and they want us to use the verb be. I chose the gerund here. Okay. Mayuko dislikes being late for concerts. Okay. If I use the infinitive, Mayuko dislikes to be late for concerts, that also works a little bit. All right. But it really doesn't work well with dislikes. Okay. And if you need a reference, go back to page 69 in our student book and look in the second column for verbs and gerunds. Okay. Some of the words that we use with gerunds are avoid, enjoy, miss, dislike, finish, suggest. Okay. Now, if we had the word likes, that would be something different. But this one is dislikes. Okay. So the correct use here is being, the gerund. Okay. Number 5. Do you enjoy blank to country music? And they want us to use the verb listen. All right. So for this one, I chose the gerund. Do you enjoy listening to country music? If I would have used the infinitive, do you enjoy to listen to country music? That doesn't work. All right. And then again, please use the 3 columns on page 69 of the student book to help you with these if things get a little bit tricky. Okay. But it's important that you just take your time and try to understand which one of these to use. So let's look at number 6. Alan refused blank the scary movie. They want us to use the word see. So for this one, I chose the infinitive. Alan refused to see the scary movie. If I would have used the gerund, Alan refused seeing the scary movie, that doesn't work. All right. Number 7, we usually avoid blank in the park at night. They want us to use the verb walk. So for this one, I chose the gerund. We usually avoid walking in that park at night. All right. Obviously, when we use the infinitive, that doesn't work. We usually avoid to walk in the park at night, in that park at night, so that doesn't work. So we have to use the gerund here. We usually avoid walking in that park at night. Number 8, they wanted blank at the library, but it was closed. So they want us to use the word study. For this one, I chose the infinitive. They wanted to study at the library, but it was closed. If we would have used the gerund, that doesn't work. They wanted studying at the library, but it was closed. So, because the gerund does not work, we use the infinitive. They wanted to study at the library, but it was closed. All right? So hopefully you got those answers. And if you have any questions about these, because these can be tricky, please go back over them using page 69 of the student book as a reference. And if that doesn't make sense, you can email me and we can go over it, or I can give you some more exercises around this to help you understand it. Alright, so now let's move on. Alright, so before we move on with page with page 65, number 3, let's just remember, let's look over in our student book, page 69, so that we have a visual reminder of the verbs and infinitives and verbs and gerunds. Okay, so let's remember that gerunds deal with preferences, and infinitives deal with future plans, right? So we have some verbs that work with infinitives, some verbs that work with gerunds, right? Verbs like decide, intend, need, plan, refuse, want, those work with infinitives. Verbs like avoid, dislike, enjoy, finish, miss, suggest work with gerunds. And then we have some verbs that work with gerunds and infinitives, like continue, hate, like, prefer, start. Alright, so let's remember that, and let's move on to page 65, number 3. So here we have write new sentences with an infinitive or a gerund when possible. Alright, if not possible, put an X in the box. Alright, so this is where it gets really tricky, where we have to figure out if we're going to use an infinitive or a gerund, or if it's just not possible. Okay, so the first one is done for us. Betty prefers to go to crafts fairs, not to the mall. And how we can rewrite that is Betty prefers going, right, to crafts fairs, not to the mall. So we took the infinitive to go, right? Betty prefers to go, and we can change that into Betty prefers going to. Okay, so we can change the infinitive into a gerund. Okay, now the second one, that's also done for us. and they're showing us this cannot be done. All right, we cannot change this. The guide suggested going on the historic walking tour. So here they said going, so they used a gerund, but we cannot change that into the guide suggested to go on a historic walking tour. Okay? So we cannot use the infinitive there. So now that we have these two examples, let's pause the video and work on 3 through 8. All right? And then I'll come back and we'll go through these together. But notice, and this is something that I noticed, number 6, why do you dislike watching tennis on TV? This is a little tricky, so I just want to make sure that you pay special attention to this. All right? And remember, you can always go back to page 69 in our student book to look over these, to look over the grammar connections and try to work through whether you can use an infinitive, a gerund, or a gerund and an infinitive. All right? So let's pause the video and work on 3 through 8. We'll come back and we'll go through these together. Okay, so hopefully you had some time to go through 3 through 8 for yourself. Now let's go through these together. All right, so 1 and 2 are done for us. So let's work on number 3. The lights went out, but the musicians continued playing. Okay, so the question is, can we rewrite this sentence using a gerund? Because they've used, they've used the gerund. Can we rewrite this using an infinitive? Okay, so their gerund was playing. The lights went out, but the musicians continued playing. So the answer is yes, we can rewrite this. We can say the lights went out, comma, but the musicians continued to play. Okay. Number 4. I avoided going to the dentist, and now my mouth hurts too. I avoided going to the dentist, and now my mouth hurts. So they used, again, a gerund, going, right? The question is, can we rewrite the sentence using an infinitive? Well, let's see. I avoided to go to the dentist, and now my mouth hurts. So no, that doesn't make any sense, right? That doesn't fit. We cannot use I avoided to go to the dentist. So that would be an X in this box here for number 4. Let's look at number 5. I started reading the book last night. Started reading, right? So reading is a gerund. So they've used a gerund here. The question is, can we rewrite this sentence using an infinitive? Well, let's see. I started to read the book last night. So that makes sense. So we can use an infinitive here, to read, instead of reading. Okay? So let's look at number 6. Remember, number 6 is a little bit tricky, all right? Number 6 says, why do you dislike watching tennis on TV? Okay. Why do you dislike watching tennis on TV? Now, we ran into this situation before, this problem before, where we had this word dislike. And if we look back on page 69 in our student book, the word dislike is used with gerunds. Okay, Thomas dislikes exercising, right? But we cannot use it with an infinitive. All right. So if we go back and we look at how they used it, why do you dislike watching tennis on TV? And we said that watching is our gerund. We cannot use dislike with a infinitive. So if I said, why do you dislike to watch tennis on TV? That doesn't make any sense. All right. However, you might come across people in the street in real life who might say that. Why do you dislike to watch tennis on TV? All right, and it's just wrong. So we cannot use an infinitive here. So an X goes in this box. Number 7. The band plans to give another concert tomorrow. All right. So here they've used to give, which is an infinitive. The question is, can we rewrite this sentence and use a gerund? Well, let's see. The band plans giving another concert tomorrow. That works. Okay. So that works. So we can use a gerund instead of an infinitive here. Let's look at number 8, final one. Raul hates to drive in the city during rush hour. Okay, so here again, to drive, they've used an infinitive. The question is, can we rewrite the sentence and use a gerund? So let's find out. Raul hates driving in the city during rush hour. And that makes sense. We can use that. So yes, we can rewrite the sentence using an infinitive. All right? Whoops. So these are my answers. And hopefully I've explained that in a way that you understand. It was, it's pretty tricky. You have to really concentrate and use the page 69, the information on page 69 in the student book to really go through this, because it can be a little tricky. All right. So, so 65, page 65 in our workbooks, we are done with the Unit 5 review. All right. And in summary, what we've talked about was around town, right? And more specifically, we talked about things like community events, things that we can do in the community. All right. So let's review some of the vocabulary words and phrases that we've seen. Now remember, we've only reviewed lessons B, C, and F. All right. If you go through the entire workbook, we have lessons A through F. So some of these words you'll see here in our review were some of the words that were used in the whole lesson for Unit 5. Okay. So let's make sure that we can pronounce these words correctly. All right. So let's go over them. First word is admission. Admission. Afford. Afford. Concerts. Concerts. Events. Events. Exhibits. Exhibits. Storytelling. Storytelling. All right. Some more words, some more vocabulary words and phrases. Come home. So that's a phrase, right? Come home. And it is present tense. Eat. Eat. Go. Go. Meet. Meet. see, see, take, take, crowd, crowd, excessive, excessive, mist, mist, musicians, musicians, superb, superb, unremarkable, unremarkable, amazing, amazing, excessive, excessive, fabulous, fabulous, incredible, incredible, irritating, irritating, ominous, ominous, superb, superb, unremarkable, unremarkable. All right, so those are all the vocabulary words and phrases. I know we went over superb and unremarkable twice, but that's okay, we can keep practicing. Okay, so these are all the vocabulary words and phrases that we learned in Unit 5. All right, so now we're going to move on and start looking at some different tenses that we've learned through this class, right? Up to this class, up to up to level 3, and we're going to look at some stories and see how we use those tenses in stories, and then answer some questions about them. All right. So in our next video, we'll start going over the different tenses and reading some stories. All right, tense review. All right, so we'll do that in our next video.